Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones, and welcome to the 2024 STRAIME Awards. It's like the Game Awards, only with my name in it. We've been through this song and dance before, so let's see how quickly I can cover all the bases. These are my personal top 10 games of 2024, but to make it a bit more fun, I make up a bunch of arbitrary categories to give them a unique prize in. I've also got a few fun side awards for random gaming topics peppered throughout the show. The rules are simple. For a game to be eligible, it has to have had an official release, physical or digital, in 2024 for me to count it. And trust me, when I say 2024 had a lot of games that released digitally that year, but physically this year, and I held out for the physical copies. Speaking of that, the release in question needs to be my first time playing the game. The only exception to this rule is if I feel the release added or changed enough things for me to consider it a new experience. Basically, even though Jeanne d'Arc, a fantastic PSP SRPG that you should all play, came out on modern PlayStations in 2024, I played it in 2007, so no dice. And lastly, no matter how much I may have loved the game, no demos or early access titles. Normally, whatever game I show off when highlighting that rule ends up making my list when it does eventually come out, so, it just seems fair. As always, please remember that these are my top 10 games, so if a game that you loved isn't here, I either didn't like it as much as you did, or much more likely, I just didn't play it, so I ask that we keep things civil. And if it makes you feel any better, there actually were a lot of games that I wanted to play last year, but didn't, either because I didn't have the money, or didn't have the time, or just didn't have a PS5, so maybe you can take that as a bit of consolation. If you like what I do, please consider commenting, subscribing, maybe even checking out the Patreon. It honestly does help a lot. Alright, with everything out of the way, let's get things started. Starting things off is a very peculiar game. We have the Water Everywhere, but not a drop to drink award for Emptiest Ocean Game. And this goes to Endless Ocean Luminous. Come to think of it, I started last year's awards with an Oceanic game too. Weird. The reason why this is such a peculiar title is because I feel like despite it being in my top 10, I have more to complain about with Luminous than I do positives. Look, I absolutely loved the Endless Ocean games on the Wii, and I was very excited when they announced a new title, only to eventually discover that they'd stripped away nearly 3/4 of the series' features and emphasized multiplayer and randomized maps over anything with any real, depth. Do I wish Luminous had kept the engaging, albeit goofy at times, story with likable characters? Yes, of course. Do I wish they still allowed us to traverse our boat and island and upgrade our character with new gear and some RPG mechanics? Yes, of course. Did I still somehow sink well over 130 hours into Luminous, making it my most played title of 2024 because I was so engrossed with its gorgeous undersea environments and lively oceanic creatures? Surprisingly, yes. So apparently it still did something right to keep me invested, and I think it deserves a spot on this list for that, if nothing else. Sometimes something you've never even heard of catches your eye, and you decide that it's something you want to check out. And then that something ends up tickling your fancy in a really good way. And that is why I'm giving the Bubblegum Machine Alien Toys Award for Best Impulse Purchase to Omochapan. You play as a series of toys in a Japanese department store at night. You only control one toy at a time, and each has a very limited set of moves that makes them the ideal choice for any situation. It's essentially a puzzle platformer, and it's usually obvious to figure out what you need to do, even if it takes you a couple of tries to do it. You'll climb over boxes, explore backroom office spaces, bypass murderous Roombas, and deal with very clear fire hazards to get around. The game just oozes charm, and all of the toys feel like they would work as real toys that would be fun to play with. The game is pretty short, it's only a few hours long, but it's a worthwhile experience and one that I really enjoyed. You can even return to old areas with new abilities and find hidden capsules to unlock alternate colors or forms of all the different toys. I'm a big fan of controlling something small in what is essentially a normal-sized environment, It's a big part of why I love Chibi Robo, and despite playing very differently, I get similar vibes with this game. I'd never even heard of this title until I saw it on Twitter saying that it was out, but it was a purchase I'm really glad I made. Oh yeah, and the sound design is fantastic. I am obsessed with the clinking plastic of this bug toy. It's just so good. Alright, and now on to our first side award of the evening, the always popular Top Waifus of the Year category. Truthfully, I've given up pretending this is an actual award, and I accept that it's just an excuse for me to show off cute girls from gaming over the past year, so here we go. General Blythe from Subverse, Katharina from Metaphor Refantasio, Miyuka from Bunny Garden, Nyanletotep from Sucker for Love Date to Die For, Aimi from Eden Survivors, Amabie from Shin Megami Tensei Vengeance, Chitose from Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Sally from Victory Heat Rally, Eve from Stellar Blade, and Cassandra from Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. So, yeah, good year for cute girls. On with the show! As I mentioned earlier in this video, I don't own a PlayStation 5. Unfortunately, the console has been out long enough that a lot of games that are still coming out for PS4 aren't getting physical releases in the States. Fortunately though, region locking is far less commonplace in this our Lord God Arceus' decade of the 2020s, and Europe has my back. That is why I'm giving the Pickled Onion Monster Munch Award for Best Imported Game to Visions of Mana. The first new mainline Mana game since Dawn of Mana on the PS2, and they have to specify mainline because in a world where Square Enix didn't suck, we'd have gotten to celebrate some cool new events in the discontinued mobile entry Echoes of Mana. Oh yeah, and they also shut down the developer of this game like the day it came out. Seriously, video game layoffs, it's a serious problem that we need to address. But I still think it's worth mentioning that Visions of Mana was a fun, endearing, and relatively gorgeous action RPG with a lot to offer and vibrant colors. I'm a big fan of the series of Mana. I've said time and time again that Legend of Mana is my favorite video game of all time, and I was really happy to play through this one and support it. They did a super nice job with the character dynamics in this title. Like, I actually think Val and Hina played off one another really well. The game even had some fun Legend of Mana DLC costumes, which, by the way, were a huge pain in the butt for me to get, because region-locked games may not be much of a thing anymore, but region-locked DLC sure is. Also, hey, Europe, while I've got you here, can you send me some Monster Munch? Oh hey, speaking of Europe, our next award is the longest-running English sitcom award for Best 3-Hour Game. And no, Omochipon took me longer than 3 hours because I was stupid and died a lot. Instead, this title goes to Thank Goodness You're Here, a comedy-based slapformer where you play as this wee yellow fellow and help out the citizens of Barnsworth, a quaint northern English town where everybody's got problems. Despite the game being fairly short and linear, it's a title where everybody is going to have their own unique experience with it. You run around and really all you can do is jump and slap stuff. But that's all you really need to do. The writing is hilarious. Like, this genuinely might be one of the funniest games I've ever played, and you never really know what's gonna happen next. So many quotes from the perfectly crafted and acted script have stuck with me. The art style is so charming and silly and cartoony. I don't even get all of the jokes in this game because I'm an American, but it still had me in stitches from start to finish. It's a game I not only want to get other people to play, but I want to watch them play it. See, the most brilliant thing about Thank Goodness You're Here is that by things reacting to your slaps, you essentially have full control over the comedic timing from start to finish. And as we all know, like, the number one thing that everybody should know is that the most important, most valuable, most critical aspect of comedy is... I'm not exaggerating when I say that the Super Flash Brothers, or SFB games as they generally go by now, might actually be my favorite indie studio. From their early Flash game classics like The Legend of Zelda and The Lampshade of No Real Significance, to their Detective Grimoire series, timing, the charming Switch launch title Snipper Clips, and even addicting little mobile experiences like Rugby Golf, I love nearly everything these talented devs and artists have put out. Naturally, our next award is a no-brainer, the Rugrats Search for Reptar Shadow Monsters Award for Best PS1-style horror game goes to their latest classic, Crow Country. Players take control of Agent Mara. I know what you want me to do, and I'm not going to do it, and explore the abandoned amusement park known as Crow Country. The setting is absolutely gorgeous, and the weird puzzles feel strangely logical when you're in a theme park. I loved seeing what I was going to run into next, I adored piecing together the bigger mystery through memos and newspaper articles, and I really appreciated that for Big Dumb Babies, they included a mode that turns this survival horror experience into a rich and engaging horror-themed point-and-click adventure. Crow Country is one of the most visually stunning throwback games I've experienced, and one that I was really happy to play through. And one I'm absolutely gonna double dip on when the physical copies come out, no doubt about that. Our next side award goes to the Goodest Good Boy in Gaming for 2024, and the nominees are Koromaru from Persona 3 Reload, Pikul from Visions of Mana, Pudding from Touch Detective 3, and Rooter from Space Venture, which isn't actually out yet, but it did finally get a Steam page up, so I'm counting him. And if you really expect me to pick only one Goodest Good Boy, you are crazy. By all means, pick your own winner or just add to the list in the comments below. On with the show! Our next award is what I can only refer to as the Gift from Apollo Award for Best Prophetic Vision. So join me as we head back to a simpler time, the very first STRAIME Awards in late 2021 when I really didn't know what I was doing yet. They look great, sound great, and left me with a genuine hope that they did well enough to get a brand new third title down the road. So hey, guess what? They apparently did well enough to get a third title. Or maybe they didn't, and we were just lucky enough to get one anyway. Either way, Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club is the third main entry in this long-neglected series. They brought back the original writer, and this may be the best story in the saga yet. I'm such a huge fan of Japanese murder mysteries, especially the ones this series draws a lot of inspiration from, like the works of Seisha Yokomizo. Seriously, read Death on Gokumon Island sometime, it's so good. Emio was such a fantastic, creepy antagonist, and I'm really glad Nintendo was able to drum up so much intrigue and hype for this announcement with that initial teaser. I loved revisiting these characters. I think this title did a really good job of keeping the type of puzzles that make me feel clever, while doing a good job of modernizing it and not leaving us completely in the dark. I love this series, I adored this title, and maybe I'm being greedy, but I really hope we don't have to wait another 3 decades to see more from this saga. At number 4 is something that I think you've all been waiting for, the I've been waiting for this award for Best Persona Threemake. Don't look at me like that, you can't just assume you know who's gonna win this one, I might surprise you. It's Persona 3 Reload. That may have surprised at least one of you. Look, Persona 3 Reload is a good game, heck, it's a great game, but do I like it better than Fess, which I've said is my favorite Megaten game of all time? No. But if it makes you feel any better, you can just say I'm being old and overly nostalgic. I loved a lot of things that Reload added. The extra activities you can do with your dorm mates in the evening were great. I loved getting some extra scenes with characters that definitely needed more screen time in the original game, and the new cast did a genuinely fantastic job. While I may not personally prefer it to older versions, and am still sad to see certain things that were unique to Persona 3 removed in favor of making Reload feel more like Persona 5, it stands out as a distinct Persona experience. It's one that I do truly believe that many fans, new or old, will enjoy, and appreciate this specific take on Persona 3, even if it doesn't dethrone Fess for me personally. The battle outfits are stupid, I'm not budging on that. And that brings us to our next side award, the Most Video Game Adaptation of 2024. And the winner is Like a Dragon Yakuza! Of all the video game adaptations last year, this certainly was one of them. On with the show! And while I'm on that particular subject, our next award is Da Big Kahuna's Garlic Cheese Balls Award for Best Taste of Home Experience. As some of you may know, I grew up in Hawaii and absolutely loved it there, and I got to relive some great memories thanks to the latest installment in one of my all-time favorite game franchises with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And like every Like a Dragon title, there was just so much sub-content, including an entire Pokemon-style game, essentially its own Tartarus, and an entire Animal Crossing game with Dondoko Island that I may have spent way too much time on. Like, seriously, I'm pretty sure at least 2/3 of my total playtime has been smashing up garbage piles. Which reminds me, if you're like me and want even more Yakuza hanging out with mascots on an island games, go wishlist Promise Mascot Agency. It's legitimately one of my most anticipated titles of 2025. I knew I could trust the Like a Dragon series to deliver an amazingly nostalgic take on Hawaii, showcasing that, yeah, it's a paradise, but one that's definitely full of its own problems, with crime, homelessness, and inflation. But you can also visit a shockingly realistic depiction of the Ala Moana shopping center. And much like the real Ala Moana, I spent way too much money at the arcade. Heck, I wouldn't have been shocked if they had included Big Kahuna's Pizza in the game. If you ever get a chance to visit Oahu, seriously, do not miss out on those garlic cheese balls, though I think they've moved since I lived there. They used to be right by the recycling center. I don't know where they are now. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I have to buy some shrimp out of a van and get back to Dondoko Island. Alright, I'm definitely getting into my sneaky rules lawyering with this one. So we all know I'm not allowed to include games that I've played before, right? But here's the thing. Despite having spent several years saying that Ace Attorney Investigations 2, Prosecutor's Path is quite possibly the greatest title in the entire Ace Attorney franchise, technically I'd never played Ace Attorney Investigations 2, Prosecutor's Gambit until last year. Heck yeah, Loophole, baby! In fact, I'm giving the Flash at Lua Adventure in China Award for Biggest Loophole to the Ace Attorney Investigations Collection. And hey, while I'm at it, y'all wouldn't mind if I also squeezed in the Apollo Justice trilogy, would ya? Thanks. Yeah, alright, this is arguably a massive cheat on my part, but look, Ace Attorney is my favorite game franchise, and Prosecutor's Gambit is legitimately amazing. I honestly do think it's the best in the series, and it's so absolutely awesome that it finally got officially localized thanks to this collection. Considering that I actually find the first Investigations to be one of the weakest entries, it blows my mind even harder how good Gambit is, and it's something that I think every fan of the series should play. They may not have all been new, but getting 5 Ace Attorney games on modern hardware in 2024 was so incredible for me, and made me so happy. Bring on the Latent Crossover port and hand over Ace Attorney 7, and I am good to go. Alright, fine, if you still think it's cheating that I put those titles here, play Paper Perjury. It came out last month, it's a great title for fans of the Ace Attorney series. Honestly, it's probably my most played game of December. I absolutely loved it. It's a truly fantastic late-year title that deserves a bit of love and attention, and this seemed like a good place to give it. Now, before I announce my Game of the Year, it's time for the annual tradition of my Patreon pick. I always ask my loyal patrons to pick out some of their favorite games and give a special award just for them. I'm incredibly thankful to all of those who support the channel in this way, it means a lot to me, and their collective winner for this year's award was Metaphor Refantasio, which is great, because now that it won something in this video, no one is allowed to get mad at me for not including it in my top 10. Sorry to any of you who are holding out on it being number 1. And finally, it's time to announce my 2024 Game of the Year, and the award obviously goes to Dangeresque the Rumisode Triungulant Episode X. In this expansive new Rumisode, you take control of Dangeresque 2, and have to put together an elaborate 3 skies to escape from a skyscraper, all from the relative safety of this elevator. On top of this story-rich adventure, there's also the homeport edition of Rig Rug, the arcade classic from Rumisode 2. Yes, this expansion has everything that gives it Game of the Year material, and obviously I'm just kidding everybody. I mean, could you imagine DLC even being considered for Game of the Year status? Ridiculous. No, my real Game of the Year may not actually come as a surprise if you watched my latest installment of indie games inspired by Megami Tensei, because it's Bloomtown, A Different Story. In fact, I don't even really want to go too into the game here because I feel like I covered it pretty nicely in that video. But look, if you don't know what this game is, I want you to imagine one part Persona 5, a dash of Stardew Valley, and the whole thing gets tastefully served up in 1960s Gravity Falls. The game has your young party and their buff immortal corgi exploring an alternate world to take down demons that possess townsfolk and drove them to commit unspeakable acts. Aside from fun turn-based battles, there's plenty of life sim stuff to do, and it really was just a huge combination of things that I love. It's one of the main titles this year that I kept wanting to jump back into whenever I had time, and I'm absolutely cool calling it my Game of the Year. Check it out sometime for yourself if you're interested. Alright, and there you go, another STRAIME Awards done like dinner with my top 10 games of 2024. As always, please let me know what your favorite games were down in the comments below. Now, because this actually was the 10th Games of the Year style video I've done, make sure you join me soon for an extra special treat where I'm going to be ranking my top 10 number 1 games. Thanks for watching, please consider liking and subscribing, it really does help the channel out a lot, and I will see you next time, so until then, take care.